Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating philosophical narrative, one that gets right to the very heart of identity, heritage, and the future. Okay, let's dive into this. We're looking at a story that asks a deeply profound question about the foundational roots of an entire continent. We'll be breaking down a text exploring the root of Africa and analyzing how traditional heritage and modern development, well, they don't actually have to be enemies. Whether you're into cultural studies, sociology, or honestly just love a completely compelling story about human identity, this explainer is going to give you a powerful new perspective on how we balance exactly where we come from with where we're going. Our source material grounds its entire philosophy in this one absolutely profound piece of wisdom. A people who forget where they come from can easily lose where they are going. It sets this incredibly beautiful scene, right? Imagine the sun rising over Africa. The sky is just painted in gold. You hear the birds, children playing, the daily work beginning, and sitting there beneath an old tree is a group of elders sharing the past. This specific quote from one of those village elders is the catalyst for everything we're going to unpack today. It's a stark warning, sure, but it's also a guiding light. And it deeply, deeply affected the central figure of our narrative, a young man who was sitting right there, just listening. Part 1. The Son of the Soil. So our story centers on a young man known in his community as BT Fireman. He wasn't just a local resident, he was a musician, a dreamer, and a storyteller. He loved his people, and he firmly believed the continent carried this power that the rest of the world desperately needed to remember. You see, when he looked at the earth beneath his feet, he didn't just see dirt. He saw history, he saw ancestors, sacrifice, strength, and a vibrant future waiting to be built. That wisdom from the village elder we just talked about, it completely took hold of him, literally kept him awake at night. The elder's words just kept echoing in his head, leading him to ponder a rapid succession of deep foundational questions. He started running through this mental checklist of what actually makes up the continent. Like, was the core of Africa simply the physical land? Or was it the people themselves? Was it the languages, the music, the traditional clothing, or maybe it was the stories passed down from grandparents? He was desperately trying to isolate that one defining variable. So the crucial point is, he realized that asking about the land, the clothes, or the music, those were all just tiny pieces of a much, much bigger puzzle. He was ultimately asking one grand overarching question: what is the root of Africa? BT Fireman realized this required an answer far bigger and way more profound than any single physical element. It couldn't just be something you could reach out and touch. To find the true root, he had to look completely beyond the tangible and search for that invisible thread tying all those other elements together. Part 2. Discovering the root. To figure this out, BT Fireman began intentionally studying the traditions happening around him every single day. He watched families preparing traditional food, listened to African languages being spoken with immense pride, and watched dancers moving to drum beats with rhythms older than most modern cities. And through all of this, he discovered that the root of Africa wasn't a physical thing at all. It was a powerful, abstract force: culture. But he didn't just see culture as some dusty relic of the past, He realized it was a living, breathing power. It's a power that connects generations, it tells people exactly who they are, and gives entire communities their identity. It teaches respect. And crucially, culture carries stories when books are lost, keeping memories completely alive even after the people who made them are gone. It's literally the ultimate survival tool of a society. Recognizing this immense power, BT Fireman understood that Africa possessed something of truly incalculable value: a vast collection of cultures that had survived centuries of intense change. From the everyday street music to sacred traditional ceremonies, from deep farming knowledge to intricate craftsmanship, every single piece carried history. This realization led him to share an incredibly empowering message with the youth in his community. He told them, never be ashamed of where you come from. Your roots are not chains. Your roots are your foundation. Just think about how transformative that framing is. It completely shifts the idea of heritage from being something that holds you back to the very bedrock you stand on to build your life. Part 3. The Modern Challenge. But as BT Fireman looked around, he noticed a really troubling conflict happening within his community, specifically fueled by globalization. The very foundation he had just identified was actively being eroded. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast. Young people were actively abandoning their roots. On one side, they were becoming embarrassed to speak their mother tongue, rejecting traditional clothing as old-fashioned, and just ignoring the stories their grandparents tried to tell them. Then on the flip side, they were embracing this modern shift, believing that everything foreign was automatically better. The text notes a frankly devastating detail. These young people could easily name famous foreigners, but they couldn't even name the local people who had literally built their own communities. They were facing total cultural erasure. Part 4. Tradition Meets Progress. BT Fireman knew the world was changing fast, and he didn't want Africa to reject the future at all. He wanted his people to embrace technology, modern education, business, science, the whole shebang. But he flat out refused to accept that progress required erasing the past. So, addressing a crowd of youth, he delivered this core thesis. We don't have to choose between tradition and progress. We can carry our culture into the future. And this brilliantly illustrates a totally different path forward. It destroys that false dichotomy where you have to be either a traditionalist stuck in the past or a modernist who completely abandons their heritage. He presented a third option: integration. You can absolutely walk into tomorrow fully clothed in the identity of yesterday. He then broke this down into highly specific, actionable advice. He told the crowd, learn from the world, but don't forget yourselves. Travel across borders, but remember the village that raised you. He encouraged them to speak international languages for global connection, for sure, but warned them not to bury their mother tongue in the process. Finally, he told them to go out and build modern businesses, but to always remember the ancestral wisdom of the people who came before them. It's just an incredible way of holding two seemingly opposing ideas in perfect harmony. The reaction to this speech was profound. The text describes how the crowd of young people became entirely quiet as he spoke, really absorbing the weight of his words, before erupting into massive applause. It was a total paradigm shift. For the very first time, many of these young people truly understood that culture does not have to disappear for development to happen. Progress doesn't require a blank slate. Actually, scratch that. True development is substantially strengthened when it's built on top of a solid, historically rich foundation. So, as we wrap up this exploration of BT Fireman's story and the root of Africa, I want to turn this philosophy toward you. Whether you're in Africa, Europe, Asia, or the Americas, globalization challenges all of us to maintain our unique identities. So ask yourself, how will you carry your own cultural roots into the future? How can you embrace modern progress in your own life without letting your heritage fade away? Remember, your roots are your foundation, not your chains. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep learning, keep growing, and never forget where you came from.